Very good, very good.
Good. Everybody, welcome to Kigali Foreign Affairs Council. We are excited to have the Ambassador of the European Union in Rwanda. Just before we start a conversation with the Ambassador, I want to remind everybody two things. One, we are on the record, just to remember that part. And second is I'm going to jump in the conversation with the Ambassador for the first 20 minutes, and then we'll open up for the rest of the audience to ask questions. So please start sending your questions as we go through the conversation, and I would try to take many questions as possible. We have 107 people, so we'll try to take as many questions as possible. So, Ambassador, thank you very much for your time. I want to start our conversation a little bit on the big picture. I was actually watching the president of the European Commission. She was speaking at Davos a few minutes ago. And when she was elected, she chose Africa as her first visit when she went to Addis Ababa for African Union headquarters. So I want to ask you, what does the cooperation and partnership between Africa and EU looks like today under her leadership? And if I could add, could you also, how will you redefine the relationship between in the future going forward?
Well, thank you very much, and allow me at the very outset to thank you for this opportunity. And I really welcome this initiative of the Kigali Foreign Affairs Council, which again allows for an interesting platform for an exchange with different stakeholders on foreign policy and the role of different, let's say, partners of Rwanda at this very moment. So once again, I'm really pleased to join you this afternoon, and I thank you and all the guests who are connected. In relation to your first question, well, our continent-to-continent relation, it goes without saying that Africa and Europe are natural partners. You look at the geography, the history, the cultural bonds among our people, and not least the growing, let's say, economic and let's say trade ties that are growing in the recent past. So again, we are natural partners. Both Africa and Europe are facing a growing number of shared priorities, shared challenges, which of course including the effects of climate change and digital transformation. So it's nothing new, but I think the intention and the ambition of the European Union and our new leadership is to move this already excellent and solid relation, to move it to a next level and move away first and foremost from a traditional donor-recipient relation, which is mainly linked to the development cooperation, to move to a more ambitious strategic partnership based on the identification of shared priority, shared interest. So that's the reason why we're also having a broader kind of spectrum of stakeholders involved. Is not anymore a government-to-government relation, but it's a kind of holistic relations that includes, of course, the private sector, the youth, the media. I mean, it's really a fully fledged cooperation and partnership across the board. Let's not lose sight of the fact that the European Union is an interesting example of regional integration in the aftermath of the Second World War. So there was also a kind of a peace and security trigger there. There was the ambition to create a space of an integration, which would trigger then a space of peace and security and economic development, of course. So the European Union can bring a lot of experience when it comes to the ambitious objectives of regional and in particular continental integration. That's the reason why European Union is strongly supporting the let's say the consolidation and implementation of the African free trade area. And these are all, let's say, activities where we have our own experience and we can bring our institutional, but again, also other stakeholders' experience to the table. This cooperation is also aligned and very much focused around our sort of main and increasingly important strategic objectives, namely the Green Deal, the green transition and energy access, digital transformation, sustainable growth and jobs, peace and security, and migration and mobility. So what I mentioned, I mean, we are confronted to, I would say, similar challenges. And at the same time, I think there is space and interest for potential joint opportunities. And that's the reason why we are witnessing a growing interest and exposure of this partnership of Africa in Europe. The narrative is changing, so to speak. Only a few years ago, I can remember the dominant narrative about Africa was linked to conflicts, was linked to poverty, while today, and this also is the result of let's say the positive developments, I think we are gradually moving away and leaving space and emphasis to a different kind of narrative. So Africa as a partner, Africa as a potential opportunity, exchange in both directions. So I think there is a completely new chapter. Of course, we are still facing structural issues, still a lot of poverty level, still a lot of conflicts, governance issues. But of course, this is not unique to Africa, I can tell you. So I mean, it's something that it's global, I would say. But as far as the European Union is concerned, the partnership and the relation with Africa is really on the top of the agenda. And as you mentioned, it's symbolic, but also reflects a clear, let's say, interest. The first, let's say, mission of the president of the European Commission was to visit our friends and colleagues at the African Union Commission in Addis Ababa last year. So this reflects again the level and the quality of the partnership. We were supposed to have a summit of head of states and government last year in Brussels, and in the run-up to the summit, we had planned a ministerial level meeting here in Kigali. Well, unfortunately, as a result of the COVID crisis, we had to postpone both the ministerial meeting in Kigali, but also the head of states and government summit. And we sincerely hope that the conditions will be there to resume this dialogue and to have the ministerial, but also the summit sometime in 2021. So the objective of the summit is to endorse a new kind of action plan, a new kind of agenda and way forward to translate these, say, political ambitions into concrete realities.
Yeah, so basically a new foundation of the relationship between the two continents. I want to come back to something you mentioned, the challenges we're facing, and of course, COVID-19 epidemic. It's a challenge we have. Before we talk about the work you're doing in Rwanda, let me touch a little bit on this. How's the delegation supporting with regards to COVID in Rwanda, also in general in Africa, by the way?
Right. Well, this is, of course, a quite relevant and topical question. And since the very beginning, the European Union marked the global dimension of this crisis. Since the very beginning, it was very clear that this kind of challenge was not a local challenge or something that we can solve at local level, because nothing will be solved until it will be solved everywhere in the world. So that's the very reason why the European Union developed as early as April last year a kind of a global COVID response, which is a combination of humanitarian, health, and socioeconomic dimension of this crisis. So the European Union, and I would say globally, but in particular in Rwanda, and thanks to the cooperation and the coordination with our member states, we developed what we call a Team Europe approach. Team Europe approach represents, as far as I understand, the largest contribution of in the framework of the COVID crisis in Rwanda. is a combination of grants and a number of, let's say, different kind of tools that are supporting Rwanda in the response to this crisis. As far as the European Union is concerned, we focused on the socio-economic response. Of course, this crisis was not just an health crisis, but of course, all the measures, and by the way, I seize the opportunity to reiterate our strong appreciation for the timely and effective response that the government and the people of Rwanda were able to put forward. But of course, this had a cost. And if we look at the impact on the economy, both formal, informal economy, the tourism industry, I mean, you name it, I mean, there was an impact across the board. So we immediately realized that there was an immediate need to support this recovery response plan that the government put forward immediately. And we contributed through 50 million euro budget support operation, which is still, let's say, monitored on our side. And but we all appreciate again the timely and effective measures that were taken, not least on the health side as well. Other member states, of course, were more active on the health side, so the provision of a number of equipments, technical assistance in order to support the Rwanda Biomedic Center. So we had a very comprehensive response, and we're extremely proud of it, also in light of the excellent, again, measures and results. Of course, there is an emerging concern in relation to the most recent trend. But once again, we are here to support the government, support the people of Rwanda, and we sincerely hope that this crisis will be over very soon. You referred to the intervention of President von der Leyen at the Davos World Economic Forum only a few hours ago. And I would like to highlight what she mentioned in that context. And beyond the immediate response to this crisis, which is, a fact of life, the European Union across the board has been a key actor in this crisis, both again in terms of the management of the crisis, side effects of the crisis, but also in order to support the production, the development and the production of the vaccines. So beyond this, the President von der Leyen highlighted the need to look forward. The lessons learned from this crisis is that we can hardly cope with this kind of situation on an ad hoc basis. We have to build some structure, some permanent cooperation, and that where also multilateralism is a key pillar of this concept. And she referred to the creation of the biodefense preparedness program. So it would be a permanent structure which would receive kind of permanent financial resources, know-how, cutting edge, and private partnership, public partnership that will allow the international community, not only the European Union, to respond to future crises. As I mentioned, lessons learned from this COVID crisis is that we need to be prepared. Preparedness is the name of the game. And so I think it's very important now, of course, to respond and focus on this COVID crisis, but also to be able and to be strategic, to look forward and to look to the future. So this is a very interesting element which was mentioned. Yeah.
So you just answered my question about what lesson can we learn from this COVID. So let's jump now back to here in Rwanda. What are key areas of cooperation between Rwanda and the delegation?
Well, no, allow me to complete. The COVID crisis, because I think it's still quite relevant. So I think has been extremely. We appreciate the quality and the level of the dialogue with the authorities, which I mentioned is still ongoing. Only earlier this morning, I had an exchange with the Minister of Local Government on this very issue. And also, we appreciate the role of civil society organizations. We think, and again, this is not something that can be tackled only at government level. I think it requires a kind of a global response. And we appreciate the active role that both Rwanda and international NGOs have been playing and are still playing into this response to the crisis. And we as EU and as Team Europe, also with some of our member states, have provided support to a number of civil society organizations who, in close partnership with the authorities, have been, let's say, implementing complementary activities. So government and civil society together. So this is a fantastic example of the synergies between government and non-governmental institutions and organizations in the response to this crisis. Now, of course, and to respond to your question, the key areas, of course, these in the recent past has been one on top of our agenda. As you can imagine, on a daily basis, we've been dealing with this COVID crisis. It has also affected our working methods. As you can imagine, I'm connected from home. We all respecting and contributing to the efforts of the government to contain, especially this new wave. So this has had an impact also on our working methods. But beyond that, I think, again, the relation between Rwanda and European Union is quite strong and solid. We rely on kind of mutual respect. And again, here in Rwanda, we appreciate the vision and the ambition of the authorities, of the leadership, and we are here in support of these priorities. So our development cooperation, our development partnership is fully aligned with the development objectives of the country. National strategy for transformation, and more recently, the future drivers of growth report have been our kind of direction, our compass. So if we look at these priorities, I think these priorities are actually aligned with our own strategic priorities. I already mentioned the green economy, the digital transformation. All these, of course, resonates perfectly. Jobs and growth, so the promotion of investments, the attractiveness of Rwanda in particular for foreign investments. These are all areas that we are on our agenda. The drivers of growth report, which was a report which was jointly developed by the World Bank and the government of Rwanda, highlights another extremely important, in my opinion, element of the equation, which is linked to the human capital. So you can hardly achieve ambitious development goals, and even if you have the most sophisticated and articulated, let's say, agenda, if you don't have the human capital. So this report highlighted the need for an increased level of attention to the human capital, and in particular, the skills and development of skills which are aligned to this ambitious agenda. So we are currently, I mean, we are in a very interesting juncture, by the way, when it comes to these EU-Rwanda relations, because as we speak in these days, actually, we are, let's say, engaging with different stakeholders in order to develop our new multi-annual indicative program, which is the kind of the roadmap that will guide our cooperation in the coming years. So it's a very interesting and, of course, exciting time, because we have the possibility to shape a little bit the nature of this partnership for the next 6 years. And once again, we really appreciate the quality of this engagement. And so the ambition is to, let's say, finalize this kind of analysis and assessment jointly with the Rwandan authorities in the coming month, to be able then to roll over gradually, of course, our new activities in the near future. As I mentioned, let's say, I'm just giving you some areas of cooperation. Then, of course, the details will follow. But of course, I think that the skills development is gaining some kind of relevance in our partnership. I think we will do our best to support the government ambition to increase the level of the skills of the people in Rwanda, in order to cater for the possible interest of investors, both domestic and foreign. So this is something that for sure will be in our agenda. And then, of course, the overall digitalization, which is a kind of a cross-cutting, but also we will also build on our existing activities on agriculture. Agriculture remains, of course, a pillar of the local economy. But what we would like to support the government into the transformation of the agriculture sector. So to move away from let's say, agriculture mainly aimed at the trade, at the development of value chain, transformation, integration into both the regional market, but also, why not, in view of the exports to the European Union. So I think these are the main, I would say, directions, but of course, this remains to be seen. If I can mention what, we achieved in the past a lot. We're extremely proud of the achievement of our partnership with Rwanda. In the recent past, our support to the energy sector has been extremely important, both for the development of the grid and so the distribution, but also the support to the off-grid, let's say, policies. So we are extremely proud of this support, and I hope and I think actually it produced a very positive impact, which is extremely appreciated. So it's our partnership is across the board. It's also worth mentioning the governance component of our partnership. Yes. Currently, we are working with the Parliament, the Ombudsman, and the Ministry of Justice in support of these three institutions. And again, extremely interesting, the Parliament, because we all recognize the important role of the Parliament, also in terms of the oversight on the public expenditure. So a very important public finance management component there. But also with the Ombudsman, we appreciate the work in relation to the fight against corruption, which in Rwanda is one of the key, let's say, areas of competence of the Ombudsman. And last but not least, with the Ministry of Justice, where we are developing an interesting partnership, in particular in support to local and domestic homegrown dispute resolution mechanism, namely the Abunzi Court. So the European Union has been supporting the Abunzi, and we think they play a very, very important role into this, the management access to justice for Rwandans. An interesting area of cooperation that I'm extremely also happy to mention is the support to the refugee crisis. And this has been historical in relation to our support to WFP, UNHCR in the management of the, let's say, the influx of refugees from neighboring countries over the last years. But more recently, the European Union was the first international partner in support of the government of Rwanda in the establishment of the emergency transit mechanism in Gashora. As you might remember, President Kagame, back in 2017, he referred to this unacceptable situation of these people stranded in Libya. Yes. And it was also the result of a very famous CNN report on this subject. And President Kagame stood in Africa and said, we need to bring African solutions to these African problems. We can hardly just wait for international partners to take these people and also to allow these people to cross and take risks in crossing the Mediterranean, and some of them, unfortunately, losing their life. So we welcome, first of all, at the highest level, this statement, and we pledged our support for the establishment of this transit mechanism in Rwanda. And this now is a reality in Gashora, and now thanks to the support from the European Union and other international partners, including some European member states, this is a reality. Thanks to the establishment of this center in partnership with the government of Rwanda and UNHCR and other partners, including civil society organizations, we've been able to lift hundreds of these people out of Libya, waiting for their resettlement in other countries. And this process, of course, not least because of the COVID crisis, was a little bit delayed, especially the resettlement process. But now I'm very happy. It was reported to me that some of these people have been resettled in other countries, which actually allows Rwanda to receive more people from Rwanda. So this is an extremely, extremely relevant issue. Another area which is extremely interesting and I find it extremely relevant into the Rwandan context is this process of reintegration and rehabilitation, I would say, of prisoners that are progressively being released out of prison following the genocide against the Tutsi of '94. So this, of course, is a matter of concern for the authorities, and we have been responding to a kind of appeal from the authorities and some other partners to contribute to this process through a psychosocial support to the communities and to these people who are going back to their communities, and also to promote their reintegration into the social and economic life of their communities. So I could continue for hours, as you can imagine. I mean, we've been active for many years now in Rwanda. Again, it's a nice combination of relations and support with the government. And then we have the non-governmental track, which is also extremely successful. We all appreciate the motivation and sometimes the very good synergies between government and non-governmental organizations in some areas. So this is something that we are ready to intensify and increase in the future.
All right, so before I see people already sending a bunch of questions, and I promise I'm going to start taking them. I want to ask this one last question, then we take that question from the audience. Looking at what Rwanda has achieved in the last 26 years, what lesson the world can learn from Rwanda? What do you think, what lesson do you think the world can learn from Rwanda?
Well, as I mentioned, I mean, the ability in the aftermath of, one of the most tragic events of the 20th century, probably of human history, I would say, was the ability to develop a vision to, reunify the country. And this has been really the guiding principle, I would say, that we all respect and support. So the development of this vision to move forward and actually to develop this country. And as I mentioned, we all appreciate this. Of course, it's a long process. We can hardly expect or promise, the results in a short period of time. And as I mentioned, this requires also a longer-term investment into human capital, skills development, education, which of course is extremely is a precondition actually for this process. So Rwanda is definitely, I would say, an example on in this respect, and I think that that's one of the reasons why we are so, let's say, our partnership is so solid and successful, I would say.
Yeah, all right, so let's take the questions from the audience. Let's see. There's people send questions. Okay, so the first question is from Odette. The Cotonou agreement was supposed to expire last year and was extended December 2020. Could you give us some updates on the Cotonou agreement?
Yes, sure. No, thank you for the question, which shows also the interest and the understanding of these sometimes quite complex dynamics. The Cotonou Agreement is, I would say, the legal basis which governs the relations between the European Union and Africa, Caribbean, and Pacific partners. So these, let's say, as soon as we approached the expiration of the agreement, there was a very long kind of process of negotiation, again, to address the new and to capture, I would say, the new vision and this new kind of the new nature of this partnership. So to move away from a donor recipient to bring a little bit a partnership amongst equal on the agenda. And now we're extremely proud to say that the agreement has been reached. So now there are a number of technicalities, including the ratification by national parliaments, that will, of course, then pave the way to the implementation of the new agreement in the coming months and years. So this is an extremely important agreement, which captures all the, let's say, the broader spectrum of the relation, including the political dimensions, the respect for, shared values, including human rights, but it's also a very strong also human dimension when it comes also to cultural, relations. I forgot to mention when I referred to the areas of cooperation, yes, the growing momentum of economic diplomacy, of course, as I mentioned, and in particular in support to these kind of excellent work that Rwanda, also thanks to Rwanda Development Board, is doing to improve the business environment, to improve the attractiveness of Rwanda for foreign investments, but also to develop a cultural, I would say, diplomacy, cultural leg of our relation, which is a combination of different kind of activities, but in particular the exchange. We see the people-to-people dimension of this partnership. As I mentioned, we're not talking anymore about a government to government. We want really all spectrum of the society to be part and to feel part of this process. So only a few days ago, we hosted a very big event, unfortunately only online, to promote our Erasmus program and other opportunities for students to promote this exchange among students. We think this is part of this broader relation, to give the opportunity to Europeans to know better Rwanda and to Rwandans to know better Europe. We think that this dialogue, these networks, and the experience that these young people will make thanks to this scholarship is an extremely important element, especially because we put youth at the center of our strategy. I mean, if you look at the demography of Africa and the demography of Europe, there is a kind of, they're not really aligned.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
it emerges the importance in Africa to invest in youth. Youth, and my, I would say, motto is that we should not talk about youth, but to talk with youth, which means that we should bring, and our Commissioner for International Partnership, Urpilainen, the youth is really on top of her agenda. She is not sparing any effort to engage, to bring the youth into our, to the table, and not just to address youth as an abstract entity. And as far as we are concerned, we are also trying to engage with youth. I devote a lot of my time in talking, receiving, engaging with youth, individuals, organizations, and I'm always available and quite happy actually to engage with youth organizations. I think they can bring a lot to our kind of reflections, especially as we are looking to the future, and the future belongs to the youth.
Excellent. All right, so we'll take the next question, please. Okay, the next question is from Manzi, African Leadership University. Could you talk about a little bit about Brexit and how impact affects your work on the ground?
Well, on Brexit, well, our reaction was we regret, but we respect. We should not lose sight that this was a decision of the people of the UK. So we can hardly challenge this outcome of this decision. Although personally, and I could not really agree with the outcome of this decision, but we have to respect it. So this is the starting point. Of course, UK is and will remain a key element into the international arena. Although, I mean, now the negotiation on Brexit, I'm talking mainly on domestic EU issues, is proven quite difficult. They are probably only now a lot of segment of the society are realizing the cost of the Brexit, which was initially just perceived as a political decision and almost isolated from the daily life of people. And now I see people complaining about the lines at the borders, the problems in the of course the trade, and you name it. I mean, the impact is across the board. And unfortunately, I'm afraid a lot of people is just now realizing the impact, the negative impact, and again, the cost of Brexit. As far as our external relations are concerned, the ambition is to absorb as much as we can, of course, even financially, I would say, the Brexit. So our level of engagements hopefully will remain, let's say, at the same level as in the past. Of course, again, I think we will remain engaged with the UK. I mean, in spite of Brexit, I think we share a lot of values, a lot of objectives, and we share, let's say, the overall ambitions, especially on our external agenda. So I sincerely hope that even at local level, we will be able to preserve these relation with UK. And of course, I have excellent relations with the current High Commissioner and frequent kind of exchange. But of course, we look forward to receiving the new UK High Commissioner later this year.
Okay, so we're over the time, but I want to take two last questions quickly because I see there's a lot of questions coming in. One is Dr. Burera from the University of Rwanda. In your view, what's the main add value of the joint Africa-EU strategy in comparison to other partnerships that Africa has with other countries or continent?
Well, as I mentioned, and I think this feeling is fully reciprocated, that the relation between Africa and European Union is a special relation. Mm-hmm. We are natural partners. I think that we all agree that Africa needs Europe, Europe needs Africa. The proximity, again, the historical links, and also the more recent, let's say, even people-to-people dimension of this partnership really makes this relation and partnership extremely special. And also for those who are more interested, let's say, in the economic impact, of course, if you look at the trade flows, the investment flows between Africa and Europe, you can hardly compare with other areas of the planet. So I think it's extremely important to work also with other partners. I mean, multilateralism, which I just flagged in my opening remarks. Multilateralism remain a pillar of our, let's say, foreign policy, and I profoundly disagree with those who say that COVID has, challenged multilateralism. On the contrary, I mean, even President Kagame yesterday in his intervention in Davos highlighted how this crisis has highlighted how interconnected and interlinked we are. So I think it's very important to take that concept forward and translate that concept into concrete realities. So I think that, of course, as the European Union-Africa partnership is part of a broader multilateral kind of context, and we also look forward to work with our African partners, in particular on the multilateral fora, on global issues, on climate change. I think there is an extremely interesting convergence of views and objectives, but also, as I mentioned, on new challenges and opportunities that digitalization and other areas can offer. So I think it's extremely important to build already on this existing partnership. But again, as President von der Leyen mentioned, to move it to a next level, where not only governments and institutions are involved, but also civil society, the youth, the private sector. We want to create an area of peace and stability, of course, to better manage the migration flows, to better support the growth and the creation of jobs, especially for youth in both continents. So I think we have quite a wide range of shared interests that we are currently working with our partners in Africa. It goes without saying that the creation of this African Free Trade Agreement, as I mentioned at the beginning, is a game changer, I would say, because that will create a completely different, let's say, business environment for both intra-African trade, but also for the, let's say, more active role of European companies in the continent. Talking about the role of private sector and our economic diplomacy agenda, I forgot to mention a very important development, which is linked to the creation of the European Business Chamber in Rwanda. Yes. And this is something that I really welcome. We have these business chambers in many countries. And since my arrival, I've been working with my team, but also with, let's say, private sector representatives here in order to create this platform for dialogue, which is already proving extremely useful. on a number of specific thematic issues. So I really welcome, and the European Union will continue supporting this European Business Chamber, yeah. And we think it can play a very important role into this relation. And this, to link to the question, is very important also to bring this business community into this continent-to-continent relation. You know, in the margin of the summit, we have a very important event, which is a business forum, which brings together companies from both continents, and the youth forum, which is again kind of a signal of the importance that we devote and the space that we want to give to the youth into shaping this partnership, and also in relation to the implementation of this partnership.
So I want to apologize to everybody. I'm so sorry I can't ask the question. We ran out of time. But Ambassador, I want to finish on a soft question. Somebody asked, they will ask you, I know you're Italian, what is the best pizza in Rwanda? So
well,
let's finish on that.
I'm afraid I can hardly answer. I mean, I can say my place is the best Italian restaurant in Rwanda. I wish I could host all of you one day when this COVID will be over. But I can tell you that I'm very happy to see that Italian food and wine tradition and excellencies are extremely appreciated in Rwanda. Of course, I can hardly mention, but there are a number of very good Italian restaurants which offer not only the food, but the Italian experience, meaning even the relation with the owner, exactly. So I think it's an holistic concept, if I may. Yeah. As you mentioned, on a very soft note, I will also bring a kind of a critical element into this sector, because recently we are facing, and that's also where the European Business Chamber has been extremely active in the recent past, is in relation to the introduction of new standards from the Food and Drug Administration of Rwanda, which we fully understand and appreciate the need to protect the consumers, etc. But I think that the modalities and the risks to impact on this excellent presence of Italian products and the European products in Rwanda. So I sincerely hope that this kind of conversation that we as European Union are trying to facilitate and to promote among different stakeholders will produce good results in the near future. And again, I think that you know, it's very interesting to promote also the gastronomic diplomacy, as I call it. I think it's very important to bring people together, and I think it's also part of our continent-to-continent relation. Last year, we produced a very interesting recipe book from Africa, where all head of the delegation and European ambassadors in Africa contributed with one local recipe produced in partnership with a local chef, which I did with Chef Japan. It's called, very talented Rwandan chef. We produce a very nice Rwandan plate, which is now features on this book.
Amazing. That's wonderful. Ambassador, we have to host you after COVID in person, because there's a lot of topics then, but I said a lot of questions. I apologize, Benjamin and everybody, Jean-Paul and David. I'm sorry I could take this question, but Ambassador, thank you very much for your time. We really appreciate it. And it's always great to hear the work you're doing in the community, and it's very fascinating. So thank you very much. And let's stay safe and hope when COVID ends, we'll have an in-person conversation.
Indeed.
Thank you.
Allow me to also thank you on my side and on behalf of the whole EU delegation and the team in Rwanda. I always say I'm the face of the European Union, but you know, whatever the European Union is doing in Rwanda is the result of the hard work of a fantastic team of local Rwandans and Europeans who are working here in Rwanda. And this allows me also to appreciate and acknowledge their contribution. And I sincerely hope again to expand on a number of these issues. Of course, in 30 minutes, we could not really go into details, but I hope I gave you a little bit of a snapshot of the EU interest, presence, and added value in Rwanda, both at the local, national, regional, and continental level. So I thank you very much. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you, Ambassador. Have a good one. Good night. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.